Let's talk about processors. This to me is the hardest part of any electronics project. I often just give up and default to whatever microcontroller is available. But we're trying to be real engineers here, so let's understand what's going on. For this example, let's use the Teensy 4.0 and the Itsy Bitsy M4, two microcontrollers that I'm deciding on for my current project. People on the internet say that the Teensy is way faster. But why? Clock speed is the first obvious factor. 600 megahertz versus 120 megahertz. Clock speed is basically how many cycles the chip can run per second. So more cycles means more work done. But the biggest advantage actually comes from the processor inside. The Teensy runs an ARM Cortex M7 while the Itsy Bitsy only runs an M4. First of all, the M7 is dual issue, meaning it can handle two instructions at once. Think of it like a cashier with two hands instead of one. The Itsy Bitsy can only handle one item at a time. Second, the M7 has L1 cache for frequently used data. Check out this video on cache if you want to know what that is. It keeps its most used data in its pocket instead of running back to the warehouse of main memory every time it needs to do something. Third, the M7 does this fancy thing called branch prediction. In code, every if-else statement creates a branch. Basically, different paths the code can go down. And normally, the processor starts to stall when it has to decide which path it needs to take. But the M7 can predict branches, so it guesses ahead, allowing things to keep flowing instead of just stalling. Finally, the M7 has hardware capabilities that handles 32-bit math and 64-bit math directly. The M4 can only do 32-bit math in hardware. If it wants to do 64-bit math, it has to kick up the software, which is way slower. So next time you're picking a microcontroller, don't just look at clock speed. The processor inside and those characteristics I just mentioned is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Follow for more hardware content and subscribe to my newsletter for tips, tricks, and resources.